Got it.
Good,
We
good
all got it.
morning.
Good
Good morning. Good
morning.
morning, everyone. You have arrived at the Awakened Mother podcast, and we're streaming on multiple platforms. So you're going to see me moving around and looking different places. You're going to hear my guest, Roxanne Hoge, who's going to share all about herself and what she's doing. And I'll give you a little background about the Awakened Mother podcast. So I have been working with moms and families for decades. And one of the qualities of the moms on the ground, the moms in the world that catch that there's something beyond what they may have been told, that ask questions, ask those uncomfortable questions, turn over every stone to really learn, weigh this information and that information, and really move into their intuitive wisdom. Because mother's intuition is it's a real thing. We all have intuition, but mother's intuition is a real thing. And in our culture, it has been just accepted that we dismiss or diminish or disregard the wisdom of a mama. So the awakened mother is one who reconnects with her intuition, who stands firm to connect with that eternal wisdom, because she knows she carries the mystical cord of remembering who she is and whose she is. And in keeping with the desire, truth is such a high value for me. It's always been this like guiding, kids, truth, love, beauty, creativity. It's always been such a guiding force in my life. And when all the censorship began to occur, I knew I wanted to have an opportunity to dialogue with moms, with experts, with spiritual leaders and teachers, with professionals, and bring uncensored, unfiltered truth to people so that they can make educated, informed choices about how to raise kids, how to treat their bodies, how to stay connected to themselves. So you have arrived at the Awakened Mother podcast, which are weekly dialogues with moms and experts and spiritual teachers and leaders and professionals that are all committed to empowering and uplifting the mother and our children. So this morning, I am so thrilled and delighted to bring to you this powerhouse mama that I had the complete joy and honor of meeting recently at an event that I co-hosted with other organizations in local Los Angeles. And I want to tell you a little bit about Roxanne. So Roxanne Beckford was born in Kingston, Jamaica. She emigrated from the island in the late 70s, graduated from boarding school in South Florida and from Davidson College with a degree in psychology in 1986. After working in public and community relations in Miami for Citibank and the Rouse Company, she arrived in Southern California in the late 80s to become a working actor. She has done that now for almost 30 years, starting out playing Whitley's cousin on A Different World and continuing to appear in television and movie roles, even while marrying her husband and having and raising 4 children. Her IMDb page can be found when you go to her website, which is called superroxanne.com. After her marriage and the addition of the surname Hoge, Roxanne and I might be saying it with a little French.
It's a little French. I like that. Hoge.
Yeah, and her husband Bob founded a maternity clothing website in 1998, which we'll talk more about because that's like the mama connection. And their foray into the world of the internet and brick and mortar retail has lasted 2 decades and taught them many lessons about entrepreneurship. She became a citizen of the US after the turn of the century, and she appreciates all the wonders of this great nation, especially this beautiful state, California. And she is a community activist and volunteer. And she's also running as a candidate for the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors because she cannot imagine living anywhere other than Los Angeles. And when LA's children and businesses were sacrificed over the past 2.5 years, while vulnerable seniors and our homeless population were ignored. And all of us felt like, what could we do? She looked to the board of supervisors and found most of them completely lacking. So her work, her commitment is to help connect disaffected parents and question political leadership. And she was profiled in Barry Weiss's Common Sense. So this gives you a little bit of info about this wonderful powerhouse mama, Roxanne Hoge. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the Awakened Mother podcast.
Thank you.
So glad that you're here.
Thank you, Wendy. And I love your description of what you do, because so many of us as mothers, especially when we become mothers in a place where we may not be with our families, get on this train that has nothing to do with being conscious and conscious attachment parenting, and instead it becomes about stroller purchasing and the right preschool and just a whole different track that has really nothing to do with parenting. You don't need a whole lot. You need a car seat if you're going to be going anywhere, and some sort of diapering system, whether it's cloth or paper, and then you need your mammary glands and you're good to go.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I remember my birth education teacher said to me, "Tell the truth." So many times you go to mommy circles, "Oh, my kid's sleeping through the night," and I would sit there and I would think, "Oh my God, how is your kid?" My kid's nursing, every 20 minutes. I looked so stoned for the first 2 years of her life, because I was like the kitchen was always open, and I nursed her till she was 3. And I don't know if it's because of who I am, because of that desire for truth that I spoke about at the top, or because I was an older mom, a more mature mom, that I just knew that I was going to be a different kind of parent and give the different kind of parenting that I received. It was just this internal, very natural, and compelling force within me to parent from an I didn't even know what attachment parenting was.
Oh my God. Well, I was lucky enough to have Paul Fleiss as my pediatrician. But even before that, I think it's just, the need for human connection can only be based on truth, right? You can't, and the minute you have a baby, so much falsehood falls away. That I had sort of, I'm 56. So I had grown up with a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, and we're just like them, and and you can have it all, and you should be a CEO and go back to work. And the minute I had this baby and my husband, I remember it wasn't Starbucks, because I don't think Starbucks was a thing yet, but someone asked him to go out to coffee and he was like, "Sure." And I went, I can't leave the house again without considering this thing that is dependent on me. Whoa. It was a real eye-opener.
Yeah. It's interesting. You reminded me, Paul Fleiss was our pediatrician. And I remember I literally went around and interviewed different pediatricians to make sure that I was going to connect with a pediatrician that was aligned with my values in terms of birthing and raising my child. And I remember you and I talked about you are the perfect parent for your child. And as a spiritual counselor, which I've been doing for so many decades, like, to me, I really believe it is a sacred contract between you and the child that either you birth or comes to you. Even when, if you think, "Oh, well, I adopted this baby." No, it's a sacred contract.
Oh, yeah.
It is. And so I really love it. And the company, I think it's called Hot Mamas. Is that
One Hot Mama? And you have to spell it correctly, because you don't want to get a particular specialty of porn. So it's ONEHOTMAMA. Right. And we dedicated ourselves, because so many mothers they'll buy $1 million worth of wooden, Waldorf toys from Germany that are beautiful, and be walking around in stretched out maternity underwear from 3 babies ago. Like they don't give themselves anything. And while my message is always, you don't need to buy anything, certainly not to nurse, how great is it to give yourself a little something that is accessible, speaking of the kitchen and always being open, and makes you feel pretty.
Yeah, it's so important. Giving back to yourself. I think, one of the oddities, ironies of motherhood is this pattern of putting everybody else's needs before yours. And that concept of the maternity, panties that you're wearing. And just like, I remember, I don't think I bought a new top for at least a year after my daughter was born, because I was always nursing her. She would, I always had something on my,
and your money goes to them. Like I remember a date night. So I had my twins when my son was 7 and my daughter was 4. And then when they were like 10, 7, and 3 or so, I remember going on a date night and my nice pants were my maternity pants. Now they were a very nice pair of maternity pants, but still I was like, I think I'm done. I think I should go to a regular store now,
Roxanne, you are so funny. You are so funny.
But it's truth.
Yes, it is truth. It is, absolutely. And I really appreciate that we can riff about this experience, because what I found in meeting you is that we have such a shared vision for the not only mom's empowerment, which includes the if you're in a marriage, it includes your partner, because when you are empowered, you bring that into the family situation. So it's not exclusive, like, oh, I'm just going to be empowered and forget you over there. But I say this a lot, and I actually learned this as a mom, but I also, one of my teachers is Michael Beckwith. And when the Million Mamas movement was birthed, there was an initiative called the Million Mamas March. And he spoke about a woman loaded and encoded. And I, with her sovereignty. And this was back in 2012 that, he was saying this. And so as my business grew, as my life grew, I just think that a mom who embodies her divinity, her authenticity, raises empowered children and can change the world. Like, and so you and I met, we met at Hello, right? We were just at Hello, right? We met at Mama, and I am so inspired by you're taking, protecting the cubs like up another level by stepping forward into this, candidacy for the Los Angeles Board of Supervisors. I mean,
which is a cesspool,
right?
It's a little bit of a pit of snakes, but you're right. It's so important. And I think what's really great about parenting is that what we should do, and it applies to parenting, it applies to choosing a college, it applies to anything in life, and people don't do it. People get fixated on, oh, I'm planning my wedding, for example, this day, and they aren't reverse engineering from the marriage, the partnership they want to have. And the same with parenting. Like, how do you reverse engineer an actualized, independent, critically thinking, loving, kind, and decent human being? Well, you get that by giving them everything they need, a basis of support and love and understanding and abundance, the opposite of lack. And it's not about money. It's because people with money can have a lack perspective. And just even down to the way you feed and diaper your child or speak to your baby. And that's what I loved about Dr. Fleiss, is he made it very clear that you were speaking to another human being and
Yes.
you would ask permission before he touched a patient. Like, why doesn't everybody do that?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Like,
So yeah, the reverse engineering. So what I've jumped into this cesspool is because I'd like to reverse engineer a place to live in Los Angeles that's clean and safe and sane, and where families and creative people and businesses, the whack jobs that we all are, can thrive, right? It's la la land. I mean, this is like no other. LA shouldn't be like a homeowners association meeting where there's somebody nitpicking at you at every moment. You can't paint your building that color of beige. You know, we're supposed to be super loopy goopy. Um, and we've instead gone down this path of real punitive, just Dolores Umbridges, all in charge of the board of supervisors, hurting people.
yeah. What's been fascinating to me in my journey is the distortion. What I once thought of as our elected officials really standing for the people, this education that I mean, my world is the spiritual. I mean, everything is spiritual. So I want to clarify that, because I get that question all the time. Like, is this
Right.
spiritual? Is that spiritual? Everything is spiritual, because I believe that the God of my understanding is in everything and everyone. So there's no separation. And what I have, we have all been bestowed free will. We've all been granted this free will to make choices that bring us closer to love or away from love. And what I discovered in my education as an accidental activist is the distortion and the misperceptions and the corruption. And I was just like, I remember the very first time and I don't know why he's very present in our conversation, but I remember the very first time I went up to Sacramento for a hearing, and I connected with Reverend Michael Beckwith, and I was just like, oh my God, I need a spiritual shower. Like, listening to the authors of a bill literally lie. I was just, my whole world was shattered. I just thought, oh my God, like, they're lying. They're not telling the truth. Like, how is that possible? It was just this naivete on my part. Talk about, emotional intelligence and social intelligence. There was none of that. And then watching the elected officials just go along with it, I was just dismayed and disheartened and disillusioned and just like, wow.
Well, it was like that awakening as a mother, right? That same thing happened to me. And again, this isn't partisan. It was realizing that almost everyone was not acting for us. My moment came, it was something, this huge bill that was being passed in Washington, D.C., and it was thousands of pages. And I remember indignantly saying, well, like, they've got to read it. And a friend who was, in the know in politics was like, silly rabbit, they don't read them. Staffers write them. And I went, but like, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Like, I believed that. I thought people were actually caring about us and making hard thought, reasoned decisions. Some I agreed with, some I didn't, but that really they considered people. And I think that was the most illuminating thing about the pandemic, because without lockdown, would you or I have spent hours listening to a board of supervisors meeting, watching public comment with people queuing up, waiting an hour and a half to speak for 1 or 2 minutes, and then having these women completely ignore them and go on about their days and getting their paychecks because they were essential and we weren't? That was more horrifying. Like, I was born a British subject. And at least in that equation, you get to go see the crown jewels and like you have the queen. Like in this, we have the illusion that we are self-actualized people, and there's no crown jewels, and we don't get to go visit any castles, but they're acting as if they are royalty with dominion over all they survey.
Wow, that's profound. That is profound. I mean, wow.
I mean, have you ever, so I've actually been to, I don't know, somebody downtown, like a city council or something meeting. They literally, the architect, and I love architecture. I love pattern language and a sort of Conrad's Essential House book, and this sort of how they've set it up is they're on these daises that are huge, and the huge desks, and they're looking down at you mere mortals who come to beg us. Like, I mean, you get more responsiveness from Marlon Brando in the Godfather on his wedding day, right? You're like, dude, I know it's your wedding day. Can you like help me out here? And he goes, you know what? I got you. These people, there's no day where they're listening to us at all.
Yeah.
We should try to have one.
Well, you know, it's the parallels between motherhood and politics are really fascinating. I've often said that, and you know, I do call myself an accidental activist, and yet I believe the unspoken vow on my heart when I became a mom, like literally when I saw the line on the stick, my relationship to myself and to the world shifted 180 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, my ears were tuned to a different frequency. My heart was definitely a different frequency. And my thoughts were like, okay, wait, I'm not thinking for myself. I'm really, everything that happens, it's almost like the 7 generations principle. It's almost like, how is this going to impact my child and the children? So we as mothers, or if you're somebody who loves children, right, really genuinely cares for the well-being of humanity, will stand up in ways that you may not stand up for yourself. So I think that I call that the sacred aspect of the activism, because it's so intuitive and it's so soulful. There's this soulful, compelling drive to stand up. So I really think that motherhood, fatherhood, I think you really are, by its very role, sacred activists.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had a manager, because I'm an actress.
Right.
I had a manager who said to me when I was pregnant, she said, I know people whose lives did not change when they became parents. And she said, and I don't like those people. Because
what a great manager.
Yeah, no, right? That was right before she dropped me for having too many children. No, I was pregnant a lot. The complete just using our babies as ballast in this pandemic to throw them overboard, to not, by the way, save anyone's lives. It didn't. Shutting kids out of school saved no one's life, and in fact cost lives and destroyed social, emotional, educational development. And even if you tried to make the argument, if it just saves one life, it was saving, the idea was to save extra time for people who had already lived past the life expectancy in this country. So my husband and I always had this joke, right? Like, what's the right answer with your partner once you have children? Honey, would you save me if the boat was sinking? And the right answer is no, I would save our kids. You don't want to have kids with someone who would not let you drown to save the children you made. Oh no. Yeah. Is that
you're
better?
back. You're back. Yeah, you're back. Yeah. Yeah, that's hilarious. That's so true.
I said you don't want to have kids with someone who won't save the children. Yeah. And what we did in the pandemic was shove that, you vote in a really disgusting way. And I know that you can tell a lot about a society by the way it treats their elders. Absolutely. And that was cruel too, to lock older people away alone, to keep them from human contact, and to send COVID positive patients into nursing homes to kill them. But how we treated our children was a crime.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you speak about that. So I don't know if you know that I'm actually trained as a trauma-informed nonviolent parenting, in addition to my other, training and type, right? So for me, the idea of emotional intelligence and the idea of isolation, to me, it truly is a crime against humanity. To really separate people from one another in that way, and not allow them to be present, not allow women to birth with their partners in the space, or their doulas or their midwives in a hospital setting, or to have the elderly alone when isolation impacts the brain. It literally impacts the brain, as well as, and I know that this is a really tender subject for everybody who is ever watching or listening. I'm just giving you that sensitive content warning, right? So, right, the masks, which on the box say do not prevent transmission of a virus, and all of the many scientists that spoke about the ineffectiveness of the masks, masking a child, children, babies, infants. You know this, I'm sure, as the mom of four, the reflective impact of children seeing facial expressions helps the neurons of the brain connect. A child is born with millions of neurons, and through the emotional connection with primary caregivers are how the synapses snap, how they I'm not going to do a whole brain thing, but
it's how they mature, and it's an essential component of human development and of attachment. And so if anyone has ever read Mata Gerper's work on rye, and based on what happened in Romanian orphanages, children are not potted plants, right? You don't, I fertilize on Wednesdays and I give water daily and we're good to go. That's not enough. Right. And so by taking this away, I mean, am I happy with you? Am I mad at you? It's the flat affect. We're going to be seeing, I was a psych major. We're going to be seeing repercussions for a while. We've already seen, kids age 18 months to 2.5 losing vocabulary. A lot of teachers have talked about how many kids are stuck. And by the way, this is almost exclusively in Los Angeles, because many of us don't know because we were trapped here. But the rest of the country and even the world did not do this to their children. So there's a large control group that we're going to be able to compare to. And it's, again, it's a crime and it's evil what was done, and done for no good reason, because even the World Health Organization was not masking children. What they're doing in New York City to toddlers and what they did in Los Angeles to all our children is really unconscionable. Mark Changizi, who's a scientist who talks about, the lower visual field and how many muscles you have in your face, and how our culture, we don't make a face taboo. It is not a private part. And so it was like a forced niqab on everyone. It was compelled speech because as a medical device, it failed spectacularly because, as you say, right there on the box. Now, anyone who feels that they want to wear an N95 fitted respirator for the, 40-minute time spans that it works for and then change them out for new ones, have at it, whatever. But to do that to our children, who are now so many young girls, they already felt invisible, and now they were told, hey, you should be invisible because you're going to kill grandma and grandpa. Horrible.
Yes, and yes. And the other piece of this, I want to use the words, this campaign that was perpetuated upon us, first of all, was the use of fear. This sense that you're going to kill somebody else, and also that you should do something to yourself so that other people will be safe, and that repetitive nature of that message that became weaponized and militarized and really manipulated people. I mean, I remember, right, one of the things that I taught my daughter, and maybe you did too, it sounds like, I taught her she was the boss of her body. And literally from the time, because she was literally birthed into this extraordinary community called Agape, I would not let anyone touch her unless they asked her. From the time she was, next to my chest, I would never, some people were like, that is so cool. And then some people were like, that is so weird. I'm like, well, I wouldn't come up to you and just start touching your hair, or I wouldn't come up to you and say, oh, I really like your car. I'll take the keys, please. Like, yeah. Like really nice. Or so what you're talking about is this campaign. So I spent many years creating strategy in PR campaigns for film and personalities and celebrities. And so I understand building and creating the narrative and how you enlist and enroll people into that. So what you're talking about is absolutely accurate. And I think about the impact, like this, they changed the milestones because the tests are coming back to say that kids aren't developing, that their IQs are dropping each year. So I think the impact of this pandemic is going to last for a generation. And you, as somebody who's taken this mantle to take public office, we get to hold this container of possibility for the parents and for the kids. And one of my eternal questions is, what can we do to help people transform fear into inspired action?
Well, you're so right that fear is absolutely contagious, but so is bravery. Mm-hmm. And what has been wrought here with this whole lockstep, top down, DEFCON 1 situation is that there was a real cost to being that lone, saluting. Oh, there we go. It's being unstable again. Can you hear me?
Yes, you froze a little bit, but you're good.
Everyone saluting. Yeah. So everyone's saluting Hitler except for one guy. It's an amazing black and white photo.
I've seen it.
And so everyone's saluting Hitler except for one guy. And it's like, be that one guy. But there's a cost to stand up. But if you're a little brave, it is also contagious. But more importantly, even if no one stands up with batters, no one wants to lift their head, but people will see you and take solace. And people come up to me all the time from my small school community, and they're like, thanks, I'm with you. I agree. That's why it was so important to me to almost, never wear a mask. I would say that I had my snorkel. I would have a cup with a straw whenever I went into a store, because I will not live by lies. Solzhenitsyn, right? Like we cannot act as if the emperor is wearing a fabulous ensemble when he's buck naked. And so that's the first thing we need to do. And I think, and a lot of people sort of did this naturally. That's the craziness, right? The hypocrisy of the people who made these rules. They all then booked flights to Florida for vacation.
Yes.
They
Yes.
all then went to restaurants and had fabulous evenings out. The pajama working Zoom class that decided who was essential and who was not. Well, everyone's essential. We're all human being children of God. So what are you saying exactly? There's nothing that's not essential. If people are willing to exchange their time or treasure for it, and that's how you then get time and treasure to eat, you are essential. And so the Board of Supervisors is just one emblem. When you say, what can we do? Most of us don't pay attention to this stuff, right? We're living in our worlds that we create and our families, and we love them. And sometimes especially, traditionally religious people will be like, oh, politics is outside my purview. I don't want to be in the way of the world. Well, decided, by the way, that worship was not essential. That was one of the things that wasn't essential. Strip clubs and bars and liquor stores were, which is an odd thing. I can have my life instead of watching other people's lives play out on a TV screen. So they're seeing that now. And so I would say the most important thing we can do in Los Angeles or wherever you are, like, for example, we have a primary election that ballots are going to be arriving for in 19 days, May 9th, they get mailed. And the election ends on June 7th. People are like, wait, the election is a month? Yes, the election is a month. Vote early. The minute you get your mail-in ballot, send it back or take it to a vote center, surrender it, and vote in person. But you have to pay attention to the local offices. The good news, out of Los Angeles County's 154 races that are being decided in June, only about 50 or 60 will be on your personal ballot. So the good news is it starts with the senatorial race, but then it goes right into city and county races, the municipal local ones. So you will see them, and you should pay attention to freedom-loving, my body, my choice, the consent of the governed candidates. Again, that's not partisan. Most city and county races, by the way, are not partisan. But I am running in the 3rd supervisorial district, which is enormous. It covers 2 million people. And because of how county boards of supervisors operate, it doesn't matter if you have the sane one. If you have Catherine Barger and you're like, she's my county supervisor, I'm so lucky. Yeah, well, she's outvoted 4-1 every single time. Every single time. Because it's like the ladies of the View. There's 5 women on the Board of Supervisors. It used to be men, and they were called the 5 kings. So the 5 ladies of the View on the Board of Supervisors, they are all in on there's too much incarceration and we need to stop the sheriff from arresting people and we should shut down everyone. And oh, by the way, they just signed a contract to combat misinformation, and they want our law enforcement to be able to arrest people for not wearing masks. And by the way, their proposed budget just
you just broke up on that piece.
It's 38 billion with their budget just came out. It's 38 billion.
Right.
Oh, let me see. How can I capture the hotspot thing? Maybe that will help.
You think if
hotspot? Anybody know how to do it?
Well, you have to have your hotspot. I think you have to have it connected.
Yes, I do. And if my kids weren't at school, they would connect it for me. Dag nabbit. I am so sorry. I don't know.
That's okay. Will you repeat the budget number again? Because now
the proposed budget that they just came out with is 38 billion with a B, billion. And so this is the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, and they're using that money to lock us up, to force vaccinations on people who don't want or need them, to fire employees. By the way, fire department, sheriff's department, county employees, to fire the people who didn't get vaccinated a year ago for a strain that's no longer around. They're really quite dreadful. There's no other word for it. So we need to change the Board of Supervisors. I'm running because Sheila Kuehl is retiring. So it's an open seat. Hilda Solis in District 1 has two really good challengers, Kevin Dalton and Brian Smith. So do your homework. Have a BYOB party. If you are out there and you're like, what, this is overwhelming, divvy up all the races with your friends and have a BYOB, bring your own ballot party, and have people come over and fill them out. Like say, okay, wait a second, what are we going to do en masse? We really want to change the course of LA. There's no reason that we should live in the middle of crime and filth.
Yeah.
And it's just disgusting. It's disgusting living here. And I'm from a third world country, but our streets in Jamaica are cleaner than they are here.
It's fascinating. I really want to hear so much more, and I want to check in. If there's anyone with us that has a question for Roxanne, will you please put that in the chat box, and I will ask, because I really wanted to make it possible for people, and we can always do this again, that for people who have questions, because one of the often questions I hear people do, it's kind of like that shrug emoji, like, well, what can I do? And, what does the Board of Supervisors do? If there's a corrupt DA, how, yeah.
Well, that's a great question. So I talked about it on John Phillips yesterday. Everyone I run into, except for some of the candidates for this seat, wants to recall George Gascon. It is totally doable. I always have Gascon recall petitions with me in my fabulous office, known as my car. So I'll come anywhere. If you're getting a yard sign from me, you can sign the recall Gascon petition. If you have recall petitions in your home,
will you shut your video off?
Or
Roxanne,
again,
will you
I
shut
can
your
bring them in
video
'cause I'm
off?
working with Dennis Sign.
Yeah. No.
And then start it again. What?
Will you shut your, you went away. No, shut your camera off. Just, can you do that? Hide your camera so you'll have better bandwidth, even though you look so gorgeous. You go away when you do that. Come back.
Oh, is that better?
Yes.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yes, except it's just me. Okay.
And then there's the picture of me.
So come back. Just do it. We'll deal with it, because I don't want everybody just staring at me. I want you to come back.
No, it's okay. It's totally okay. I refuse to join the George Gascon. I'll answer Carlene's question. So okay. I'm not insisting. The thing is that the 100 years ago, almost, the recall process was instituted. Were elected either under false pretenses or who did something so egregious. And the fact is that the district attorney, by refusing to prosecute crime, is single-handedly making all those crimes legal. In other words, he's prosecution. He's legalizing open air drug use. He's legalizing smash and grab robberies. He's legalizing the assault and murder of people by people who are under 18 and not getting sentenced to adult court. So, and would the question was, am I insisting? No, I'm not insisting. I'm saying there's a recall effort going on, and if you want to participate, you should absolutely. It is emblematic of so many celebrities supported this guy over a Black Democrat, Jackie Lacey, who was a solid, good district attorney, and in fact not acting as a defense attorney. And it has made LA arguably less safe. And so all the things that Wendy talks about, all the things that I believe, conscious parenting, believing in medical freedom, none of that is relevant if you're dead. And murders are up 94% in Los Angeles over the past couple of years. So that's why I take that stand. And I'll certainly follow up on anything with it. But for me, civilization the joy of America, coming to America, is that civilization, it requires trust. You need to have a high trust society in order to function. And when I can't trust that my friends who woke up in the middle of the night to find men in their bedroom stealing their stuff and show up after 70 minutes of leaving them alive, if I can't trust that when the cops find them, they'll be arrested and get appropriate jail sentences, then everything else is sort of moot. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that it's okay. So everybody has their own opinion and perception, and I really think that it's very brave of you to take on running for a seat. And I sometimes feel like I don't know exactly who.
I think if yes, and absolutely, if someone, so Wendy, I would just say, and Carlene, there's a bunch of candidates running for Board of Supervisors.
My gosh.
Give them everything.
Roxanne, I've got to pause you because the bandwidth is making you sound very, very choppy. And I don't have a solution for that. Can you hear me okay? I wonder if I've lost you. I wonder if we've lost her. So I hear you, Carlene. Thank you for asking your question. And thank you for your honesty. And
there we are.
There you are.
No, I'm back. I'm back. Okay, and I'm back, Wendy.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So I was just saying that, certainly there are 6 candidates for the LA County Board of Supervisors, and there are 3 of them who wouldn't change a thing and who think everything is perfect, and who said, if you agree 100% on everything, then one of us is unnecessary. And there's no politician that even, heck, there's nobody in my own house who I agree with 100% on everything. But we all have to triage and and decide what's the most important. For me, the fact that those other 3 candidates don't support medical freedom is why I ran. So if my medical freedom comes with a little side of law and order, that's just a special of the day. And the fact is that that's the wonder of America, right? It's a free country. We can disagree on lots. In terms of how I vote on the Board of Supervisors, I'll vote for incarcerating criminals. I'll vote for people who commit murders days before their 18th birthday going to adult court. I'll vote every day and twice on Sunday for the rights of people to choose what they put in their own bodies. And that's, for me, that's non-negotiable.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. You know, it's really interesting. I have a really dear person in my life who's worked with incarcerated youth. She has an organization called Spirit Awakening. And what's so sad to me about, not her, but this is like a tangent, but what's so sad to me is that there has to be pick this or that. Whereas, like, I'm in a mixed marriage. My husband is, Black, my daughter's, part Black. So I have a very strong desire for racial equality, for harmony, for freedom, as well as the medical freedom, because I also think reproductive rights for women, it's essential. So I have those, and I think about my friend. Her name is Okoye Graham, and she has this organization called Spirit Awakening, and I love what they're doing, because these young kids who have been caught in the crosshairs of generational dysfunction and making choices that are horrendous. Like to me, the juvenile system needs to be reformed, because these young kids, you're not helping them by 14, they're 14 years old and they get 14 years to life, or they're charged. Now, I'm not saying that the behavior or the action is to dismiss it, but what I am saying, and it's almost like we're going full circle, right? Because if you believe a person is sovereign, if you treat them just like Dr. Fleiss talked about, if you treat this being, this little baby in front of you, with the intelligence, honoring the intelligence that they possess within them, a child that grows up that way is not going to choose to hurt another human being. But if they grow up, go ahead. Were you going to say something? I want to hear what you have to say, Roxanne.
This all has to do with parenting, right? Yeah. There's an actual success principle. Do you know what keeps people out of jail and makes them successful 97% of the time? Finishing high school, not having a child before you get married, and getting a job. Like a crazy success rate. And so if you and when you said you were in a mixed marriage, I thought you meant conservative liberal, because that's the biggest, right? Like that's the biggest difference. We're all, our meat suits are all just, it's just decoration. But those mental divide. I had a friend in a mixed Republican Democrat marriage, and that was rough. Because the fact is that we should all be looking at the beginning of life and parenting as the amazing opportunity to fix everything. To fix everything. You have two loving adults, and that's not to say, I mean, I have lots of friends who are single parents and have done it their way. That's not the issue. The issue is, do you give someone a fighting chance by connecting? And again, it's all about connection. And here's the reason for formal partnering, for marriage. It's not some outmoded sense of morality or the religious right or whatever. It is because, and I read this once and it's so beautiful, when you make a marriage, that stranger is your brother-in-law. That person is your mother-in-law. That person, so that is your family, which is again why all these edicts and the fear response to COVID was so evil, because it broke so many of those bonds. But when you have a web of human connection and relationships, then it lifts people up. So a boy that is sort of a bit of a troublemaker, as you know, my husband who's walking by, may have been, can get sent to his aunt in the country. You can, but if it's just somebody's baby mother, then I have nothing to do with you. So much of what can be fixed and made better comes down to reconnection for everybody. And I love, Wendy, that you're talking about equality. And I come from a country that is, out of many, one people is the motto of Jamaica. I'm clearly not white. It is not a white country. And we can see that the people that were hurt after children and old people, of course, the most by the lockdowns and the insanity were Black and brown people. Because my friends who decamped to Hawaii or went to their beach house in Malibu to do remote school with the tutors who showed up and the little pods that were still able to have parties for those teenagers. Yeah, they weren't caring so much about equality then. So and again, we're not going to get everything we want. And here's the thing about Board of Supervisors. You can disagree with me all you want about Gascon or how we feel about whatever presidential politics services. It should be keeping our streets clean, keeping our streets safe, and giving us something for the incredibly high taxes that we all pay, which we're all willing to pay. Angelinos, we
my goodness.
Ourselves tax hikes all the time. Like, oh, we want to help. No. Is this a sign from the universe that like, do I wind it up? Next time I'll be closer to my router.
Okay, good. Well, I definitely would love to have a next time with you. This is a really important dialogue in what you are doing, your courage. So I wanted to say, in order, I believe, I was sitting in contemplation the other day, as I often do, and I was thinking about what allows people to be brave. And what I believe allows people to be brave is essentially based in faith. Trusting. There's that compelling, like as a parent, you move forward, you do things, you say things, you will stand and champion your children. And then I believe as there's this faith in a power, a higher power, a greater power, the God of your understanding. And so that allows one to go forward with courage. I heard one person say, courage is like with all your heart. And so I look at you and I see a woman who is brave. I see a woman who has courage to stand for what you believe and what you feel is important for the kids. And I have learned that the LA board or the LA Board of Supervisors, that's a power position. Like that, and that's what I don't think most voters understand is how powerful having a seat on the Board of Supervisors actually is.
It is incredibly powerful, and what I would bring is not just my own. I mean, you're representing, each seat represents 2 million people. And what is lacking is they're not listening to everyone. I listen to everybody. I'm listening to Carly. I mean, the fact is, when they are addressing an issue, they're supposed to take public testimony and listen to the people and then make decisions. And what we've seen them do time and time again is take public testimony while they're, you can see them on Zoom. They're not actually in the room. They're not present. And then they just vote however the developers and the public sector unions told them to. So there are issues that will be, they're not over, they're over the sheriff. And that's where I lean on public safety, is that we have to have that. We can't have our kids not able to walk down the street to their first field trip at a grocery store because the streets are unsafe.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And it leads into a conversation that we'll have to do a part two about, to me, and I use the word crimes against humanity, or I use this word, and it's figurative, but yet I think that the houselessness situation, I think that's a pandemic. That's an epidemic. And I don't feel as though it receives the attention, and I don't even know where the money goes. And so
It would
I'm,
have been nice if they'd been paying attention to that, right? I know, I know where the people making bank, sadly, off of homelessness, but it's not by solving it, and that's the problem with politics. There are always people who make a ton of money by not solving the problems. And again, it goes all across the political spectrum. It is not left or right. It is entrenched career politicians doing not what the founders intended, right? They intended someone to leave the farm, go serve, and then come back and have to live under the laws that they made. And that's not what we have. We have absolutely entrenched 100% career politicians.
yeah, so true. Well, I really appreciate you. And I really appreciate that you are willing to run for a seat on this very important board. And I'm really grateful for your coming here today and sharing all that you did. There's so many more things I want to talk with you about. So I'm just going to put a plug in that we're doing a part two. And thank you for the questions. Thank you, Carlene, for the thoughtful questions. And please stay tuned. I will make sure that you know how to connect with Roxanne in the show notes. And please stay tuned for our next guest. And to let you know, there's a lot of events coming up. So please make sure that you are connected. I'll make sure you have the email so that you can join us some very special event on May 7th. So you're in the right place. If you want to embody your authenticity, your authentic power, to stand rooted in the fact that you are a divine being, a sovereign being, here to reveal and reflect the beauty and the gifts that were implanted within your soul from the Creator. So as we close, I just want you to know that you are powerful beyond measure, you are loved beyond description, and you are a force for good. So go forth and spread your magic. And we will see you soon. Thank you, Roxanne. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy, for all you do, and for all you mamas and papas out there. We can and will fix LA.
Yes. Yes.